Welcome to episode 1 of Be World Class TV. We're going to kick off by diving into mindset, mental toughness and character, vital ingredients in our success. Last summer, I launched a book called Master Mental Toughness. We combined the launch with an entrepreneurial event in Rome. During the interview with a very good friend of mine called Dino Tartaglia, I shared the 5 steps to developing mental toughness. So for this first episode, join us in Rome as we explore this critical characteristic in our success.
Hi, welcome to the launch of Simon Hartley's new book, Master Mental Toughness. And with Simon, we're going to have a chat about the book, about kind of where the idea for the book came from, and just explore some of the kind of interesting, or certainly what I find interesting concepts in the book. Simon, welcome.
Thank you.
How did you come to, in that journey, arrive at this as a concept and the idea of talking about mastering mental toughness?
Sure. I think it's become apparent to me from working with and studying people who are at the top of their game that mental toughness is absolutely critical if you want to be successful. If you want to ride through all of the challenges that are going to come your way, no matter what you do for a living, whether you're an entrepreneur or an athlete or whatever, if you want to get to the top of your field, that journey is going to be littered with challenges. And understanding that those who make it, those who become successful, have found a way to navigate their way through those challenges, endure over the course of the long haul. Understanding that principle illuminates, I guess, the power of mental toughness. So when I was researching world-class individual performers, when I wrote How to Shine, one of those 8 key characteristics was be mentally tough. And one of the things it sparked for me, one of the sort of questions that kicked off in my mind was, okay, brilliant, I understand that mental toughness is important, and I kind of see how they've become mentally tough, but could I do it? And as I was writing, so one of the lines I wrote in How to Shine was, and I wrote this to the reader as the author, have you found your limit? And I read the words back to myself and I thought, have you found your limit? Have you ever pushed yourself towards your limit? No. When do you give up? When it becomes uncomfortable. That's not going to make you successful. You know that. You've just researched these people. So how on earth do you start to challenge yourself in that way? The next book I wrote was called Could I Do That? And I wanted to know how you navigate through extreme challenges, daunting challenges, one seemingly impossible that most people would describe as impossible. How do you navigate through those challenges then? And so I put myself through a few. And it also led to an understanding that this can be developed. You know, one of the myths is you've either got it or you haven't. You're either mentally tough or you're not. And if you've got it, great, well done, you might be successful. If you haven't, never mind. You know, don't bother trying to be an entrepreneur because you haven't got what it takes. And I started to understand that even stuff like mental toughness, character, they're things you can develop. Character, whether it's the traits of mental toughness, whether it's honesty, whether it's courage, persistence, whatever, you can develop character. We as human beings do, but we sometimes don't understand the mechanism that's at work. And therefore it appears mythical, random or whatever, or that you've either got it or you haven't. Once you understand what's at work, the mechanic, the system, you can start to develop your character, and the characteristics of mental toughness just fall under that. Right.
So we've had many conversations about this, and particularly about character development, because the book you wrote, which was a cracking little read, How to Develop Character, was one of the things that kind of set me on a path, just reading through that. That understanding of kind of going back to values, and the process of measuring, which was the thing, that was a bit of a revelation to me. The fact that you can actually benchmark where you are, so you can see where you are and therefore where you've got to go. Was a wake-up call for me. So how does that all then inform the book, and particularly that you've got this very simplified, I think, and easy to follow 5-stage process. So do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah. So after working with athletes for years and years, 20 odd now, and working with people who are not athletes but also want to be successful, I started to understand that there was a system to it, a process to it, and that actually it sort of develops in layers. You know, one step underpins the next, and that step underpins the next, and that step underpins the next. And actually, if you put those steps in place and work your way through them, you end up becoming mentally tough. Lots of people get lost, and I know, because we've talked about it, part of that understanding in how to develop character is that if you try and leap from here to here, you might not do it. If you want to get from there to there, and you understand that you can create a series of steps to take you there, you can get from there to there, and if you can do that, you can get from there to there, and if you can do that, you can get from there to there, and eventually, if you keep doing that in a kind of systematic way, you start to develop the character that you want. And mental toughness is no different. So the 5 steps that underpin Master Mental Toughness, I actually developed for a US soccer organisation years ago, who challenged me to say, that mental toughness sounds interesting. We know we need it in our players. How on earth do you develop it? You know, we're kind of going from nothing. How do we get to everything? So I developed the 5-step model for them, and that's essentially what we dropped into here. I've also used it in tons of other places. And again, knowing that this is really valuable for people, no matter what journey that they're on, you know, if they want to be successful, the traits of mental toughness, the characteristics are going to be valuable. It made sense to me to you know, put that into a form that people can understand it, yes, but more than that, apply it to themselves, adopt the principles, work through them, and become mentally tougher.
Awesome. So again, as with so many of the other books, the insights that come out of the books I find fascinating, because there's a way and a mechanic, if you will, to actually apply the insights rather than just absorbing the information, which I think we're all guilty of. You read a book, you get some information, perhaps a little bit of insight, and sometimes it's very difficult to bridge from there to actually implement that, to take action on it, and do something that is right for you, if you like, where the insight works. How can we, following the 5-stage process then, and the progression of that, how can we begin to develop our own mental toughness by following this process?
Okay, so the first step, and remember, each step underpins the next. So rather than trying to leap to the top, you know, nail the first step and then develop the second. The first step is actually understanding what mental toughness is and isn't. Mental toughness is not chest beating, shouting, you know, screaming, anything like that. Mental toughness often is quite quiet. You know, it's that real quiet, concrete confidence that people have got. So understanding what it is and isn't is important. Understanding it from a personal perspective is also important. Understanding it through your own experience. So we can pick up quotes, we could read definitions, you'll see, you know, kind of memes and quotes flying around the internet left, right and centre, and, you know, what famous people have said about mental toughness and all the rest of it. That's all fine and great. But if we don't understand what it means to us, or feels like, or thinks like, or acts like, we're going to struggle to develop it. So understanding what mentally tough people genuinely look like. One of the insights I had, which I've shared in the book, is an athlete who was he was a swimmer waiting in the call room, and the call room is a small room where all of the athletes who are about to swim in that race kind of congregate together. There's no coaches, no officials, no nothing, just the athletes in there. And this is before a major competition, major final. They're about to walk out on poolside in front of 20, 30,000 people and TV cameras, and there's a gold medal at the end of it and all that sort of stuff. And one of his competitors came up and rubbed his knuckle on the top of, you know, the athlete's head and said, you know, you're going to get your bum kicked today, all that sort of stuff. Tried to erode his confidence, you know, intimidate him, all that sort of stuff. And the guy that I was working with, Chris, just kind of went, you're clearly in trouble. You know, why do you think you need to knock me in order to beat me? And he just sort of looked at him and, you know, didn't need to answer back. And that was a really mentally tough response. Lots of people would say, you know, by trying to intimidate him back, that would be toughness. No, it isn't. Actually, toughness sometimes is quiet, but really assured. So understanding what it is and isn't from your own experience, understanding when you've been tough and when you've been resilient and what decisions you made and how you responded to the challenge when you were at your most resilient, and how you think and feel when you're not, and you let things affect you and you don't bounce back stronger, you come back weaker. And understanding that you've already got within that understanding a way to get from not so resilient to resilient. And if you just did what you did at your most resilient more often, you'd already be a more resilient person. So understanding it from our own experience is critical. The reason for sharing the mental toughness matrix in there is that people can start working through what it looks like and feels like to be not so tough, all the way through to being tough on 6 scales that we've got in there, 6 criteria that we've got in there.
Yeah.
So understanding it from your own experience is critical. The second stage is to really develop focus, confidence and motivation so that they're consistent and so that you engineer those things. They're not dictated by what happens around you. You're not a victim of circumstance or anything else. So regardless of what happens, regardless of what people say, regardless of events or whatever around you, you can be consistently focused on the right things at the right time, confident and motivated. And that you don't take a hit if results change or if you get negative feedback or whatever else it is that's going on around you. That's step 2. Step 3 is to start really developing personal responsibility and accountability. So taking responsibility for what you do, not what the outcome is, because that's outside of your control, but what you do. Most people, if things are going wrong, say, oh, it was because. But by doing that, you disempower yourself and you can't control what you do and affect a change. Because if it's something else's fault, you can't do anything about it. By taking back control, and you do that by taking responsibility, you then empower yourself to make those changes and respond differently. Viktor Frankl sort of takes the word responsible apart and says it's response-able. You enable yourself to respond to it. If you give up responsibility because it's something else's fault or somebody else's fault, you cannot take control. So that's the third step. The fourth one is about deliberately seeking the discomfort zone, taking yourself out of comfort, stretching yourself, putting yourself into the discomfort zone, starting to stretch your limits. And when you do that, of course, the only way you're ever going to develop in any way is to put yourself into discomfort. But by continually doing it, you also build the evidence that says, just because I can't do it yet doesn't mean I won't be able to. And that's the confidence that fuels you to keep stretching yourself further and further and further. Because you won't develop mental toughness unless you not just endure discomfort, but enjoy it, kind of seek it, use it, find the value in it. And the final step is about really developing tenacity, resilience and composure by putting yourself in challenging situations that bring that out of you. Again, lots of people, if they become mentally tough, it's because they happen to be in situations that give them that experience. But we don't have to wait for it to come along. We can actually construct some of those challenges around us to develop the characteristics that we want. And so that's the final stage, to understand how you become more tenacious, more resilient and more composed. And from my point of view, they're the 3 real strands, the 3 pillars of mental toughness. Tenacity, the ability to just keep going, whatever's happening. However uncomfortable you feel, even if every fibre of your being is begging you to stop, you just keep going. Resilience is your bounce back ability and your ability to perform in adversity. And composure is your ability to make great decisions and execute really well regardless of whatever's going on around you. And so you put yourself in challenging situations to develop those 3.
And there are 2 concepts in the book, but also in previous books, because there's a thread that goes through this that really fascinates me. The one is the idea of the discomfort zone. It's not a term that we hear.
Yeah.
Stepping outside of your comfort zone is a term that we hear, but the discomfort zone is a different thing, really.
Yeah.
And then also the idea and the concept of the quit point. And we'll talk about a challenge that you took on.
Yeah.
Again, something that I found particularly fascinating because you set yourself up almost to fail, but to come across the quit point several times during that challenge.
I did.
Talk to us about the discomfort zone and that concept, and then let's have a look at the challenge and the quit point and how that's relevant.
Yeah. So we're probably aware of where our comfort and discomfort zones lie. Your comfort zone is the stuff you're familiar with, that you know, that you find easy. And the discomfort zone is the things that you're not familiar with and you don't really know and you don't find easy. People tend to think of this in a physical sense, but it's also you operating right on the edge of your skills base, taking on stuff that you've never done before, you don't know, taking on a problem that you don't know the answer to. That's all part of our discomfort zone. When I work with particularly elite athletes, I've noticed the alarm bell goes off when it becomes comfortable. And what tends to happen is if we step outside of our comfort zone into the discomfort zone, we fail more, okay? We make more mistakes. And lots of people don't like that, so they retreat back into the comfort zone again. What happens if you stay outside and in your discomfort zone is that slowly your comfort zone grows to encompass all those things you were no good at, but you kind of are now. And when that happens and the comfort zone grows and encompasses what you weren't good at, but you can now do, that's when the alarm bell goes off. So they immediately step back into discomfort again. And then the comfort zone grows and then they step again and they use it as a way of getting better. So when they're not making mistakes and when it becomes easy and normal and all those sorts of things and familiar, that's when they think, I've got to step, I've got to go again. So they use that very deliberately. With the challenge that I took on, the one that I kind of engineered for myself, the reason to do it was because I knew I wasn't particularly tenacious. I would give up on stuff or back off when it became uncomfortable. And I wanted to develop that in myself. So I constructed this challenge, a bit of a daft challenge. I'm not recommending it to anybody because it's daft, it's brutal, don't do it. The challenge was to walk 100 miles in 24 hours. And I deliberately constructed it, as Dino said, to give me more temptations to quit. So I started and finished from my house and I had 8 12.5 mile laps. And all of those laps came past my house. So I knew, particularly towards the end, there were going to be times where I'm thinking, I'm aching, I'm sore, I'm tired, I want to finish now, I've just gone past my house, it's just there. I deliberately didn't tell anyone about it, broadcast it or whatever, because if I had, then I'd have more of a reason to finish, and I needed to face the possibility of quitting. So I put myself into this challenge to come up to that quit point as often as possible so that I could learn how to navigate through it and get to the other side. And there was a huge moment about halfway into this challenge. So I'd done 50 miles. I came in, so I started at 9 p.m. It's about 9 a.m.-ish coming into the 50 miles. I went to refill my sack, put some more food in, put some fresh water in, changed my clothes, went to the toilet, went back out again, and because I'd stopped briefly, my body just seized up. And it's like rigor mortis setting in. And both of my legs went into pain. Every step was painful. I felt like I was being jabbed with a spear into the outside of my knees, and I'm only halfway through. And home's just there. It's a couple of 100 yards away. I could just turn around and go back. And I fought with myself for a mile or so, thinking, why am I doing this? And how would I coach somebody else through this? And I figured out it comes down to two things. Why are you doing it? How much do you want it? And if you can answer those two, and you answer them positively, you're likely to get through. If you fail on either of those two, you're probably likely to quit. Because what your brain does as you're getting into that kind of real discomfort and you're reaching that quit point, your brain comes up with all of the justifications to quit. It'll be okay because you've done really well. Nobody would think less of you. 50 miles is a long way, well done. Oh, what if this pain, what if you're doing damage to yourself? I mean, you could break a leg. You've got to stop. And it's only when you answer that question, why are you doing it and how much do you want it? So I went into it. Why are you doing it? To navigate through the quit point. That's where I am. So this is my reason to continue. How much do you want to do this? Well, I've been training for 15 months to do this. I do want to do this. So then you keep pushing through. Miraculously, what happens on the other side is that when your brain accepts the fact that you are continuing, it starts to solve the problem for you and think, okay, so if you're going to continue, how do we get rid of the pain in your legs? Tell you what we could do. We could do some stretching on that gate over there. Have you drunk enough? Do you need to eat a banana or something like that? What do we need to do to get you through this? And you keep going for a bit, and then sure enough, another quit point comes along. And you go through the same exercise again. But interestingly, the second one's not as loud as the first one. And then after a few, instead of going, you could quit, come on, you know, and justifying all the reasons to give up, instead of doing that, it goes, do you fancy quitting? No, you're not going to, are you? Okay, fine. And then you just keep plodding along.
So what interests me about that is that you know in advance that the quit point is coming up. You've set yourself up for that. But in reality, I guess as we step into entrepreneurship, we understand, or we should understand, that there are quit points. We don't necessarily know where they are.
Correct.
But it's a bit like, the average quit point, the average point of exit from a diet after day 3. When the headaches start and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of PTs will know that that's coming. The client not necessarily. But equally in entrepreneurship, we know that these challenges are going to come up, and there's going to be every manner of reason for us to actually quit. So knowing that there is a quit point,
correct,
and the nature of it helps us to see it coming and kind of defend against it, if you will.
And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. The quit point's also the back off, the not go at it quite so hard. You know, so just understanding what goes on between our ears when we hit those moments. And it's the same with resilience. What happens when we fall over? Do we think, oh, I don't want to get back up, please just let me lie here, or do we bounce back up again? Because if it's all too painful, all too hard, and I don't know why I'm doing it, and why don't I just give up and do something easier or whatever, we're not going to bounce back stronger. And it's the same with composure. What happens when you get into that kind of pressure cooker moment? What happens between your ears? So it's understanding that and how to engineer all of that, and setting ourselves those little challenges that are the things. It's how we respond to the challenge that actually sculpts our character. So constructing some of those to develop the sorts of characteristics we need. And that's essentially, kind of in a nutshell, how we master mental toughness.
Marvellous. I really, really enjoyed reading the book. It's one of those things I'm going to have to go back to. It's a quick study. It's a very, very quick read, which helps, because it certainly allows me to just skip through it several times to let some of the concepts and the ideas embed, particularly the five stages, which it kind of allowed me at least to step through the process and understand how the whole thing evolves. As you say, you build in layers, and that's very, very clear from reading the book. Simon, is there anything else that you want to mention about the book?
I just want to mention a massive thank you, first of all, for writing the foreword, and to Colette for turning a bit of a dodgy Word document into an absolutely stunning finished article. Thank you very much indeed.
Simon, thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next time on Be World Class TV. When we're focused on the right thing at the right time, we perform really well in that moment, and you question whether you can do the thing in the first place.